Hello and welcome to the Meet the Parents podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Meet the Parents podcast. Each week we bring you a mix of both mums and dads discussing a variety of parenting related topics. Real parents, real stories. I'm Tim, and tonight I'm delighted to be joined by Amie, Julian and Mark. Evening all.
Hiya.
Hi Tim.
Evening.
So this week we're going to talk about our digital footprints and what this means for our children. So let's start with digital identity and privacy. Now, this is a particularly big thing for the four of us as bloggers who write about their children, but in reality it's also a concern for anyone who has any kind of presence online, even if it's just a Facebook account, not to mention hundreds of millions of others using Twitter, Pinterest and various other social media platforms on which we regularly share what we're doing, who we're with, and pictures ranging from cute baby photos to drunken nights out we'd rather weren't made public. Now, Amie, Julian and Mark, all three of you choose to limit what you refer to and share about your families on your blogs in terms of both real names and images and even specific locations. So was this something you guys did deliberately from the outset?
Yes, I started blogging when I was pregnant, so I kind of just had at it and didn't really think about it. And it was actually my partner he said, well, what happens when we actually have another little person here? So the compromise was that I could broadcast myself, but he is anonymous on the blog and our location is generic-ish. And our daughter, we guard her identity and privacy as much and as closely as we can. So that's her name and we don't show her face either. I've got quite good at photographing the back of her head.
Yeah, so how about yourself, Julian?
I was a little bit like blasé, and the only reason I do it now is really as a narrative exercise as part of the blog. I wanted to see if I could have the children sort of hiding in plain sight on the site and try and find a device to do that. So what I've done is I'll read a couple of blogs where they refer to the three kids as the tall one, the middle one and the short one. I thought that's quite nice, but I want to give a little bit more away about the kids, but without revealing the identity. So I've got two kids, so they're pretty much aligned to sort of, say, a cannon and ball type. So if I refer to them as cannon and ball, it sort of reveals a little bit about their personality as well, and it hides them also. And I'm going to do different double acts as I go on to reveal a little bit more. So at the moment I call them Hall and Oates because one's blonde and one's brunette. And I just thought it was a really nice way of introducing it and giving a little bit more about their personality away when you've got an established personality there, and I'm just aligning my kids' personalities with that. So I did it that way initially.
Okay, so you've got Hall and Oates, you've got Cannon and Ball, so rock on, Tommy. And who's going to be next then?
Jacqueline Hyde.
So I'm going to throw in as alternatives for the future for you, Bonnie and Clyde. and then I think now we have to make you do this, Sonny and Cher.
Listen, I'll do it, yeah. That's what I'll call them next week.
So Mark, we've touched on this briefly with your kids, where you changed the names to protect the innocent, particularly because your kids are slightly older than ours and much more aware and conscious of what's being written about them. So what's kind of influenced that decision?
I started writing about my children in the local newspaper 13 years ago. That came from a meeting I had with the editor of the local paper, who said, we'd quite like a humorous column about family life, and I thought, well, I can do that, So because it was going to be in the local paper, and particularly because I would be mentioning my wife who works in the NHS, everybody got a different name. So that's how it came about for me. And of course, once you've started, you're stuck with it.
I guess it must be confusing when you've got some readers who know who the kids are and what their real names are.
Absolutely. I mean, the teachers at the kids' school I know full well, read the blog,
How do they feel about that, knowing that their teachers and things are reading about it? Because obviously my daughter's not, she's 2 next week.
Sure.
And so it's something I worry about she has no idea that I'm broadcasting her life at the moment.
Absolutely right, and I think you've got to be very careful what you write about. I wrote about the first time my son came home drunk because it was really funny, and it was quite an interesting story. The first time my daughter got drunk when she was 15 or 16, just horrendous, and it will never see the light of day. I think, Amie, you've got to be very, very careful what you write about.
Julian or Tim, have yours ever pushed back yet?
You've got to be really careful. I mean, Brody's 13 now, so they've all got smartphones, and what they do in the lockers, they show each other videos that they've found that might be a little bit rude and stuff. With it being online, they can quite easily find it, some of his friends, and you've got to be careful about what you're writing in that respect. But they have so many instances now, at that age, of things occurring, they get a very fast education in how to deal online. He probably knows it a lot more succinctly than I do. I mean, there's lots of instances. If you can imagine, you've got a lot of 30-year-old sorority-type mean girls. They've got access to filming people and bullying people online. That happens quite a lot. And so we had an instance where a girl had a little bit of a meltdown because there was one cliquey group not talking to her, and she had a meltdown. Somebody filmed it and put it on Snapchat. And then, of course, that's horrendous. They came down on it really hard. Quickly turned around that the person that took the footage was seen as the one that was troubled in that way. So she was then avoided a little bit, and they turned that around really quickly. So they get to hear stuff and they know how to deal with it really quickly. Years 8, 9, this happens quite a lot, and it's particularly girls.
Going back to anonymity, now I guess I'm at the other extreme from the three of you, where I'm fairly open about what I publish and what I talk about. So, where we live is in the title of my blog, and I've always shared the names of our 3 kids and freely published photos of them too. And looking back, I'm not really sure whether that was a conscious decision at all, so much as I didn't really make a decision at all. But I have to say, 8 years down the line, I'm pretty relaxed about it, although I accept that many people would be distinctly uncomfortable sharing as much as I do. So, I'm okay with sharing some detail. There is somewhere where the line is drawn, and I guess there are 2 things that I'm particularly mindful of. So, firstly, I'm pretty diligent about not sharing any names, details or images of people outside of our family unless they've expressly agreed that it's okay. So, whenever I use photos of things like nativity plays, I'm very careful to pixelate out other children's faces and so on. I think most, if not all, nurseries and schools these days, certainly our ones do, they always ask parents not to put photos of other kids on social media without permission. And people seem to be pretty good about it. The second one is that I'm quite cautious about talking about events or incidents that could embarrass the kids when they get older. So I think you have to be, don't you? What makes a cute blog post when they're 18 months old may not seem quite so funny when they're 18 years old.
Absolutely right.
I guess that's the stage I'm at, and that's what I'm starting to really think about.
So I guess there's one other thing that would definitely have made me much more conservative if it had been the case, and that's if there was something particularly different about one or more of our kids. So, I certainly know of examples of parents of kids who have, significant conditions or disabilities who have received dog's abuse from various, sick and intolerant people. So I think, if my kids had been like that, I would have been, I think, much more reluctant to share anything about identities or locations or so on with them.
I absolutely agree with that. I think another problem is, do you write about it if your children do something outstanding? I know lots of bloggers that are hesitant about broadcasting the achievements of their children because they're worried about getting abuse about that.
And I've certainly had that consideration when I've been writing about the boys, and eventually I decided that I would still do it, but in a way that's what you don't want it to be is, look at me, my kids are so brilliant. Although they are, obviously.
What do you do? If you're writing accurately, then you've got to report the truth, haven't you? And
I don't think it's right to ignore the truth because you're proud and rightfully so.
Yeah.
I think, as you say, it depends how you do it as well. If every other or every third or every single blog post is basically bragging about your prodigy child, people might start to feel a little bit like, okay.
I think you're absolutely right that there's got to be some balance.
As you guys all have kids at school, do they cover stuff like digital footprints and stuff with them in IT class? Because when I was at school, this was not a thing. And we were all on MySpace from about 14. And I remember my mum having a conversation with me about, well, hang on, what are you actually sharing? Who are these people that are your so-called friends online?
There is an education process, even at my daughter's age, which is 7.
But yeah, I mean, Isaac's just going through this now. He's in year 3, and they're just starting on doing an e-safety course. They've got their own, the school has its own website and its own email addresses, and everything's firewalled.
I find it quite scary that 7-year-olds are having those conversations and those talks. But then I suppose when I was 7, we had people coming into school telling us about the white van men and how you shouldn't just accept, those like wash on, wash off tattoos. You put them on your skin and apply warm water. You shouldn't accept them off people off the street who weren't like a proper shop because they were known to have LSD in them in the town we lived in.
Wow.
And things like that. And I'm thinking back, and it's only just come to me as we're talking about it now, and I'm thinking, I must have come home and told my parents that I was having those kinds of talks, and they were just thinking, what the hell? Like, this was not a thing when we were children.
It was a different world. So I grew up in the 80s, and my school was in the middle of a municipal park, and we used to get flasher warnings. Where a guy used to ring up the school and said, I'm going to be flashing about 3:15 whenever it comes out. So we used to have an assembly, and they used to say, right, he's flashing, everybody walk home in pairs, all the girls have got to go over with 2 guys either side. I mean, it was a great way to meet women for us, because we'd be escorting them home.
Back when I was a kid, there was all this stuff that was going on that you were vaguely aware of, and you occasionally had the odd teacher warning you about, but a lot of it was almost hidden beneath the surface, wasn't it? You look at all the Operation U-Tree stuff and all the stuff that was happening in the 70s and 80s that really we'd rather not know about even now. But and it's a real double-edged sword, isn't it? I think on the one hand, it's great that schools are being proactive and teaching kids about online safety as part of the curriculum. But on the other hand, it's kind of sad as well, isn't it, that we have to do this?
Yes, it is.
It does feel a bit like a loss of innocence.
Yeah.
It's an absolute loss of innocence, but you've got to live in the world as it is, not as you want it to be, haven't you?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we all do something to, in some way to try and protect either our kids' identity or, the way we talk about them. But what's the biggest fear we think we're trying to protect our kids from?
For me, I want her to choose for herself how she interacts with the internet and social media and whatever else may come down the line when she's old enough, and decide how she wants to present herself to the world.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I'd say I'm worried about taking control away from him, away of his image. I'd like to give him that back, and I feel a bit guilty sometimes when I do that.
Slightly different for me, because with my kids being older, they're almost through it now, and I know that's sounds an incredibly complacent thing to say. I suppose my biggest fear always has been the sort of lone lunatic stalker, something like that, because I think all of us probably put enough out there. If there was a determined mad person out there, certainly I'd put enough information out there for it to be done quite easily.
And you can't plan for something like that.
No, you absolutely
can't. You can do all the kinds of restrictions that we all have on anonymity that you till the cows come home. But if they're a mental case, they're a mental case. Yeah,
and my experience has been exactly the opposite, that everybody that's engaged with me online, both people, have been incredibly supportive and very kind.
But I guess similar but related, the other thing that really gives me pause is losing control, by which I mean, what happens if, God forbid, someone like Daily Mail Online picks up one of my posts and spins it in that ever so slightly sensationalist way that they do to encourage the kind of clickbait trolls that they get on these kinds of sites. And when I write about the kids on my blog or anywhere else online, I'm in control of the agenda, I'm in control of the message. If it gets picked up by a third party and goes viral, I've lost all control, and who knows what might happen then. And often as bloggers, the holy grail is to write something that goes viral, and I think there is an element of be careful what you wish for sometimes.
I think that's an interesting point as bloggers, but also just in as people. Your digital footprint as an adult now, it's not just kids as well, like especially for bloggers, because we produce so much content, but even just those who aren't bloggers and you've just got your LinkedIn profile, you might have a Flickr account that you haven't used for 6 years, but it's still got your face all over it, and you don't think about it anymore. People don't go clearing up their digital footprint anymore, and it is, if you actually spent the time looking at everywhere that your face, your name, your email address appears online, your bank details, everything, I think a lot of people would be quite taken aback.
Yeah, there's an exercise that I would recommend that everyone does that I just call the Google test. So all you have to do is type your name into Google and just see what comes up. So when I did it, and I did it this morning, I came up with a set of results that I expected. So things that relate to my blog, to Facebook, to Twitter and so on. But like you say, Amie, also my LinkedIn profile. So in 2 minutes you can research my work history. But it also comes up with all kinds of random stuff, results of sporting and quizzing competitions in which I participated. And then when you check image search, you'll find a number of photos of each of our kids, not to mention Benedict Cumberbatch. I can actually explain that one. And our very own Dave drinking a pink cocktail. Now, that one's a bit harder to explain. The fact that he comes up when you search for me, as opposed to the fact he's drinking a pink cocktail. But, and then you've got YouTube videos, all sorts of stuff, really. And that's quite scary when you think about it. Anyone with an internet-enabled phone could find out quite a lot about me and my family in 10 or 15 minutes, including what we look like.
The other good test to do that's kind of the advanced version of that is to Google search you on not your own computer. If you go onto a random computer and search your name, that's when you see the real true search of what it would bring up for you as a stranger. And that in itself is really scary. Yeah,
and once it's out there, it's out there. There's no taking it back. And there's been a lot of talk in the last year or two about petitioning Google for the right to anonymity, the right to disappear. And that's a process that's incredibly difficult for an individual to actually do. If you want to erase parts of your digital footprint, that's a lot more than burning a couple of documents. What about if we were to give one piece of advice to any parent regarding managing their digital footprint? What would it be?
I think you need to think it through before you start. And if you're going to write about your children, it's probably a good idea to talk to people who have written about their children for a while to see how it's going to work out.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you have to think ahead. I would definitely recommend, without wanting to get all scaremongery about it, considering the worst case scenario before you publish anything or you go public with your kids' identities. It's like the genie in the bottle. And now I've got that Christina Aguilera song in my head. Once information is out there on the internet, you can never take it back. And if someone gets hold of it, you have no control over how they choose to present it or misrepresent it. And you have no idea how those ever so lovely trolls who are out there might react.
I think from the perspective of non-bloggers, my advice would be just educate yourselves. How do you set up your privacy settings on all the platforms you're on? Find out actually what location-based settings on your iPhone mean and how people can use them. Just if you're educated on it, you can make the decisions that you think are right for your family.
Of course, as responsible parents, or even as irresponsible parents, there's only so much we can do to keep our kids safe online as they grow up, and to an increasing extent as they get older, we have to try to teach them to make good decisions and not go around, hacking into big military supercomputers and pushing the world to the brink of global thermonuclear war. Now there's an 80s pop culture reference for you. So I guess just to wrap this discussion up, we've talked a lot about the negatives of public digital footprints and privacy and all the dangers inherent of being online, but what about the positives? Why is it that we still, despite all the dangers, so freely share text and images that even 15 years ago would have been restricted to private diaries and photo albums? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for me, this is a fantastic era for writing and storytelling, and that's what I really like about it. I remember in the 80s sending off ideas to magazines. I'd be sat in my bedroom alone and I'd type something out, and then you'd mail them off, and you'd only have 5 people read that thing. That's it. And then you wouldn't get the amount of feedback you get now. And I think as a writer, you can improve a lot with the more feedback you get. So in the 80s, you were really throwing stuff into the darkness, And even if it got published, you never got any feedback. You never got anybody writing in because you had to write in. But now, I think you can see this escalation in storytelling that you see on TV now. I think it's all coming from this mass feedback, and people are just improving it at an exponential rate, I think.
Yeah, I'd absolutely echo what Julian says. I think now is just a fantastic time to be a writer.
It is, it's fantastic.
Just a fantastic time, for parent bloggers. What is there at the end of the day is the most fantastic, unique record of your children's childhood. It's the small things in family life that you capture through writing that are far more important than what you capture on a camcorder.
How about you, Amie, as a genuine bona fide signed up member of the MySpace generation?
I love writing, I always have, but I do enjoy video. We have a lot of videos of Little Miss, like a lot. We're doing the 1 second a day thing, which, by the way, any parents listening, if you don't have that app, get the 1 second a day app. It's so much fun. Which is literally just a second long video of your child every day, and you just see them change throughout that video. And
it's interesting what you say about video as well, Amie, because I think particularly with our children's generation, video is so much more ubiquitous than it was certainly when I was their age, where a camcorder was something you needed the gym membership to be able to carry around, whereas now they're used to being able to take videos on phones, on small handheld devices, on anything. And I saw that a week or so ago when we took the kids to the Tate Modern for the first time, and Isaac and Toby had a much more natural affinity for things like video art because they've grown up with YouTube, and video is just a normal medium. I guess for me, the one big positive about being able to share your life online is it's the ability to extend friendships and share updates with people. So when I was in my 20s, life was pretty easy. We lived close to most of our friends, and as a couple it was easy for us to just jump in the car and visit those who weren't. But then our friends started having kids of their own, or moving to different parts of the country, or to different parts of the world even. And there's no question that we'd have lost touch with all of them beyond, maybe the odd letter or Christmas card, without the advent of, Facebook in particular, I guess. And then on top of that, we had our 3 kids, and all of a sudden we can't just fly around the world to spend a week with friends without a second mortgage, or preferably a rollover lottery win, or and so we've learned to put our lives online. And I think on balance, our life at least, is the better for it. We keep up to date in regular bite-sized chunks with our old friends, and we've made new friends too. Without the wonder that is blogging and social media, I probably would never have met you guys. So anyway, there you have it. How tightly you control you and your digital's footprint is entirely up to you, and there's no one definitive right answer, I guess, but our advice would be to at least put some thoughts into something before something bad happens. He started as a complete unknown before rising to the dizzy heights of utter obscurity. They told him he should never be allowed near a microphone again. But unfortunately, he didn't listen. So now Thatcham Dad releases his debut album, Parenting Parodies. From Thatcham Rhapsody to Won't You Buy Something For Me? Find out why the critics have described this album as indescribable. Warning: best listened to with industrial ear defenders, or better still, not listened to at all. Not available on iTunes, Spotify, or in stores anytime this side of hell freezing over. I wanted to get a view on internet safety from a proper expert. So as is often the way with all things techie, I decided the best thing to do was to turn to an 8-year-old. So here's what happened when I talked to my oldest son Isaac about internet usage and protecting himself online. So I'm here with my oldest son Isaac. Hi there, Isaac.
Hello!
Now, today we're going to have a little chat about internet and online safety. So let's just start with the basics and introduce you. So, how old are you?
I am 8 years old.
And you are in which year in school?
Year 3.
Okay, so now we've allowed you to use computers and the internet from when you were quite young, and the internet's really useful, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You can watch YouTube and you can use Google as a dictionary and do lots of things with the internet.
That's right. And when Daddy's been away with work, we've often communicated via FaceTime, haven't we?
Yes. Or we use Skype.
Yeah, so one example of how useful the internet is when we bought you a Rubik's Cube for Christmas. So tell us what you did to teach yourself how to solve it.
So I used internet with YouTube and I watched videos and step by step I learned how to solve the Rubik's Cube.
That's right, and you learned how to solve it in only a few days, didn't you?
Yeah, so after 10-15 times on going on to YouTube, I finally mastered how to solve a Rubik's Cube.
That's great. So what other things do you use the internet for?
Well, I use it to watch videos, like I've mentioned. I also use it to find out things about my homework, like I did with my Learning Log homework this holiday. I use it as a dictionary and loads of other things.
No, that's right. So you said you use Google a lot to help you with information for your homework. And Google's great, isn't it, for finding things that you want. But do you know what you should do if it maybe takes you to a website that you're not expecting?
You should leave it alone, because if you go onto the website and then it does some weird things, it's probably a virus.
Ah, that's right. And viruses are bad for computers, aren't they?
Yes. They stop things from working and sometimes even take some of your files away.
That's right. People can take your information away, can't they? So, and sometimes on the websites, it's run by naughty people, isn't it? Who maybe ask you to provide details like your address and your email. Do you know what you're supposed to do then?
You're not meant to put any of your personal information in, and you should tell an adult about this.
That's right. It's always good to check with mummy or daddy because they might have a better idea.
And sometimes at school you can do these things, but only if a teacher's checked that it's safe for you.
So when you do come across a website where people ask you for your details, why do you think it is that people might want to get all this information from you?
So they can log on to your websites and maybe steal money, because sometimes you can access money from computers.
That's right. And sometimes if people have your own personal information, they can go around pretending to be you as well. And that's not good, is it?
This has happened once in my school with a girl. Her account was hacked and someone in our school got into it and sent nasty emails.
So in school, you're just starting to learn about e-safety, aren't you? So what sort of things are they teaching you at the moment?
They're teaching us not to type in personal details in websites because they can be tricks, and what to do if you've got a problem and your only choice is to press enter. That could send a virus into your computer.
So what should you do if you find something like that?
You should tell an adult and then maybe log off the computer, because when you log back on, the website may go away.
Ah, that's right. So now your school has its own website, doesn't it? And you've even got your own email address. So who do you send emails to at the moment?
Oh, I send emails to my friends.
And to anyone else?
Sometimes to my teacher to suggest a few things that we could maybe do in ICT lessons or things.
Okay, and what should you be doing if maybe someone who you don't know sends you an email?
You should not open it, and if it has an attachment, definitely don't open it.
Right, okay, so what might be in one of those attachments then?
Viruses.
That's right, and we've talked about viruses already, haven't we, and why they're bad for computers.
And if you do come across a nasty person's email, you should always put it in spam or junk mail.
That's a very good thing to do. That's really good, Isaac. Now, when I was your age, we didn't have things like the internet, so we didn't have anywhere near as many things to worry about as you do now. But it sounds like you're very sensible, and you've been taught some good things both at school and by your parents. And you've got a very sensible approach that means that you will continue to be safe online. So well done you. Well, I think that's just about it. So thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview with me.
Bye!
And that's it for this episode of the Meet the Parents podcast. We'll be back again next week, but in the meantime, if you want to see where we've been casting our digital footprint, here's where you can find each of us online. So, Amie.
I am findingourfeet.co.uk and Twitter at findingourfeet.
And Julian?
Northerndad.wordpress.
Not a Twitter fan, Julian?
Oh, yeah, Twitter. Northern Dad blog Twitter.
Oh, God, we're going to have to rehearse this in future, aren't we? And Mark.
You can find me at bestdadicanbe.com, on Twitter at bestdadicanbe.
I'm Thatcham Dad, and my blog is slouchingtowardsthatcham.com. So you can download this podcast on iTunes and Android devices, on our website at meettheparentspodcast.com, and via a variety of podcasting apps. And do please give us a follow on Twitter at Parents Podcast, and on Facebook at facebook.com/meettheparentspodcast. Also, if you're on iTunes, do please spare a couple of minutes to give us a rating and a review. So all that remains is for me to say thank you very much for listening, and we hope you'll be back to join us again next week. Good night.